Welcome everyone to I guess the first Tech Talks, I guess with Tom TTT. But today we're just I'm gonna cover the basics, all the way up to just a few more advanced, just search things, kind of a little bit for everyone, and kind of try to meet you where you're at in skill level, and then just give you a little bit to take away from today. So first, let's just talk about the standard web browsers and the basic layout of all modern web browsers, because they're pretty much the same no matter if you're in Firefox, Chrome, or Edge on the Windows platform. So right now I have Google Chrome up, and Google Chrome uses this 3 dots for the menu button. All modern web browsers, including most mobile apps, will follow this sort of pattern for a menu button, either 3 dots or 3 lines. In the Firefox application, you'll see that the menu button is this 3 lines. And then as well, we have the Edge browser uses the 3 dots, just like the Chrome. Now, right today we're reviewing browsers on the Windows operating system, but for the most part, if your patrons or anybody is running a Mac, Firefox and Chrome are going to look exactly and operate exactly the same on Mac as they do Windows. And the only difference is Edge on Windows, since that's Microsoft's browser, will be replaced by Safari on Mac OS, since that is Apple's browser. So, okay, so that's the menu buttons. So using those, we can start to find anything we need for printing, settings, and more. So to start off with browsing, all web browsers have what's called a URL bar or an address bar. This is the blank, generally white, rectangular shape at the top of the window. And this is where you type in, it used to be just your URL. So if we wanted to go to the STLS website, www.stls.org. But all modern browsers now also support search function directly from the URL bar. And basically Google has paid them all to make that default their search. So almost no matter what browser you're on, if it was installed using default settings, the default search, if you do it in an empty URL bar, will go to Google. So this is a search. Takes us right to the Google. It's like a verb now, I guess. So from here, let's see. So that's the URL bar, and we can see the same thing in Firefox, just a little shifted to the center more, and the corners not rounded, but same thing. It says search with Google or enter address. Firefox tells you basically the exact same thing right here. So you can either search or enter the website you want to go to immediately. Now, there's like 2 other things that you really need to know for using every browser, and that's the refresh button and tabs. So first, the refresh button is always this reload swirling arrow icon. Let's see, let's switch back to Chrome. So yeah, and it's generally going to always be to the left of the URL bar. I mean, that sometimes changes, but icon and then this swirling arrow that will refresh any page you're on. So if something seems stuck, or your wireless temporarily cut out and the page said it failed to load, it's always good to hit refresh once and make sure that the page just didn't fail to load that first time. And Brian's around. Hi, Brian. So the last basic of web browsers that we need to know to set ourselves up for success is tabs. So we can think of tabs as folders. whereas each tab will isolate a single page, in this sense, not a piece of paper, but a web page, so that we can do all of our work and keep everything isolated, whatever we do in this tab. And then say we find something interesting, but we want to keep this piece of paper open or this web page open, so then we can open up a new one. So that's where the tabs come in. And there's this, let me get my thing out of the way. So there will be this plus mark, which will allow you to create any new tab. And this is Chrome right now. So the plus mark is right next to here. We'll switch to Firefox, the exact same. Here's our current tab. And then here's the plus mark that allows us to open a new one. And then we'll show Edge as well. Very similar looking. Here's our current tab that opens by default. And then here's our plus mark. And if we hover over it, it'll say new tab. And you'll notice it says Control T when you hover over it. So this is the shortcut. If you are a keyboard shortcut person, you like to use the Control C, Control V for copy paste. Control T is a new tab for all the web browsers. So if you're quickly want to open up a new tab and then search something fresh, that's a good way to do it. This is also a good way to really overload your computer with too many tabs. So I generally recommend trying to keep it under 10, because it can really escalate to where they just become little tiny peaks and you can't even see the bars anymore. Once you research rabbit holes, it happens. Okay, so yeah, I like to keep it simple. I had too many situations where I got too many tabs and then I lost them all because I literally couldn't distinguish which one was which. Okay, let's see. Let's do one last thing. So we've done the settings button, 3 dots or 3 lines. That'll take us to our settings menu. Let's say our browser is acting weird or something is telling us it's out of date. All the browsers have this built-in function in the settings menu. So if we go to settings and we say help about, it automatically brings this about page and checks for updates. If there is updates, it will start telling you here and allow you to automatically download and update, and then it would just like give you a button to restart Firefox or restart Chrome to complete the update. And generally these can be done without admin privileges, so they can be, you can help users do them on their computer, or you can do them on your computer often. The library computers, the ones that we provide assistance with through SysAid agent, those generally get updated by themselves, and so you don't have to deal with this. But at times, I mean, that doesn't always work, and so checking the about and help. So here's Chrome, the menu button, 3 dots. Here's the help. Here's the about Chrome, and this one checking for updates. Chrome is up to date, so that's good. That can, if there's something where a page is not rendering right, or you expect it to look differently than it is, sometimes there are updates to web browsers that change how they render and create the visual aesthetic of the website for you. And sometimes those changes are so significant from version to version that the website can look wrong if you don't have the right version. Okay, so that's updating, and we'll just show Edge, see if it, about Edge, checking for updates. Oh, looks like this one has an update, so yeah,
Tom, I think you cut out for just a minute there while Edge was finishing
Oh,
updating.
oh, really? Okay. Well, crazy Edge. I'm back. Okay. Well, let's go over if we need to download a file or we need to find a program, how to best search for that downloadable file and to make sure that we're getting a legitimate one and it's a safe file to find. So Zoom's something popular right now. Let's just say we want a Zoom download. Thankfully, Google has a built-in function that a lot of the legitimate programs will automatically pop up with a go-to download. But that doesn't exist for a lot of programs, and you're not always going to see that. So we'll skip over that for right now and go to the standard results page. So when you are looking for a program, the first thing you want to look at when you are clicking to go there is that it is going to a domain address that you are expecting. So whereas this one is https://zoom.us. So I'm familiar that zoom.us is the domain for Zoom application. So going to this should be fine. Now, if it was zoom.cn.something else, that would give me pause because I would just expect Zoom to be right before what's called the top level domain, which is just this .us. Or Zoom doesn't have .com because they are a recent company and somebody else got the .com, but let's go here. So this is our standard looking download button. Some websites, unfortunately, might host ads, and we will cover this after this one. So we have to look out for kind of download buttons that are more ad than functional download button. But for this one, we can see it says version here for our number, and then when we hover over it, in the bottom left-hand corner down here, let's see, can you guys see my mouse? But in the bottom left-hand corner of the browser, you'll see it pop up with the address of the link for that button. You want to make sure that this link also is the similar looking domain to what is up here. If you're clicking on something that is taking you to some strange looking different domain, then we will cover what you do with that file if you are unsure. So for right now, we are going to click download because the domain looked same, zoom.us, so we don't. So let's say this is a suspicious download and you are not 100% sure it came from a legitimate place. There's this nice utility that's free online called virustotal.com. It's a simple web interface, no sign-in needed. And if you are unsure of a file or even a URL that someone sends you in an email, so in this case, we're going to be choosing a file since we just downloaded a file. So we would go to our recent downloads folder, and then we get the file we just downloaded. It's going to say this computing hash. And like, whoa, one security vendor has flagged this as malicious. This can happen if you get a 1 flag out of all of them, and it's some company you've never heard of, like Zillia. Sometimes these companies flag legitimate apps because they're the newer antivirus things always have false positives. So there's always going to be the occasional false positive. But in general, you will see that it's all clear, and the same thing with a URL. So let's say we got a URL in an email, and then we copied that and we're pasting that, and it's going to be the address right here, and then we can do the same thing and have it scan. And look at that one actually came out fine. So that's actually really interesting, the one I downloaded. So we will just ignore that for now and move on to the next thing. So that's Zoom. That's like a pretty clean website, easy to find, download button, no ads. If we're trying to find, let's say, a printer driver, or to install a new printer. So let's say we want to first, yeah, Virus told us. Thanks, Erica. Yeah, if you have any questions, and I will summarize everything into a document, and then we will share it after the meeting as well. Okay, so printers. So if I wanted to download a printer driver, the first thing I'm going to put in the address bar is the make of the printer. So for this example, let's just do Canon. So Canon, and then I would put in the model number, and generally this can be found right on the front of the printer, but I mean, if you have the manual or something else, you usually can find the model number. So let's just say Canon IR 1203, and then we're going to say driver download. Now, that's not an actual, yeah, let's do that one. Okay, so I had the printer make is Canon, and then the model, and then I simply, after that, just typed in driver and download. I didn't use any of the autocompletes. I specifically typed it in. Sometimes the autocompletes are being pushed by websites that are more forum posts, or they're marketing than actual like helpful driver site, or they're pushing their own like driver installation application. Be wary of any, yeah, so like right here, freeprinterdriver.net. Now, you should never download any drivers for printers or any otherwise that's not coming directly from the manufacturer's website, this one being Canon. So we're coming from the canon.com website. Yeah, and drivers are one of those things that like even on the first page of Google, you can have pretty malicious websites that will take advantage of people looking for just pretty simple things. Okay, so we're here. So Canon's website, HP, they all look very similar. Once you go to the model, you'll have a drivers and downloads button. Generally, the top one that is listed is going to be your newest and most effective driver. So you would just select that and download. We'll just do that for now. And like I said, if we wanted to just double check if we're not 100% sure, let's just upload that one. Minimize, I think it's a little small. See, choose that file, and whoa, okay. Something's really up with the internet, guys. Everything's malicious these days. This is why we check. But those were also another false positives because they were two from unknown security vendors. I would ignore anything up to two from security vendors I've never heard of. I would ignore, but definitely if it's something coming from a name that you've heard of, McAfee, Norton, F-Secure, Secure Anywhere, WebRoot, all of those, they have very, very accurate detection rates. Okay, so now that we just did a basic search for printer installations, and we did some basic security measures to make sure that we're not clicking on anything malicious, and double check the files that we have downloaded. If we have downloaded them, I mean, we're not 100% sure that they're safe to run. Okay, I guess now let's just dive a little bit into using Google Documents and Sheets, and how you might either assist a patron or yourself in sharing or collaborating with the documents, and the limitations to that, and the security things that we need to consider when using Google for collaboration and sharing documents. So let's just go back to Google like this, and we are going to say sign in, and it's some random patron at gmail.com. This is an account I set up. So, and I'm just going to show you the password. So so you know what an average secure password that can be easy to remember. So this is a very secure. Oh, No, this is a very strong password. Okay, something like this. Okay, now we are signed in. So once, if you need to do anything on Google, obviously you need to create an account. We're not going to cover account creation today. I think most people have a Google account already or can create one. But if you have any questions about that, let me see, post a message or ask Erica or myself after the meeting. Once we're signed into Google, I generally just go to the standard Google website once I've signed in, and then once you're signed in, you get these little grouping of 9 dots. And when you hover over, it says Google Apps. So if you click on it, right, okay, click on it, you'll notice we have all these applications and services that we are now able to use. For right now, we're just going to scroll down to this middle section after there's a horizontal line right here. We're just going to go to Docs. So that's the way to get through it, through the browser. If you want to just type it straight, like you want to go to Google Docs, you just type in docs.google.com, hit enter, and then if you're not already signed in, it'll ask you to sign in. So right when we're here, we have our standard, we can create a blank document or our templates. We also have, we can search for any documents we have created, and because this is an empty, fresh account, there's no recent documents. Once we are in Google Docs, we are in kind of the Google Workspace that is comparable to Microsoft Word. So Docs is Word, Sheets is Excel, Slides is PowerPoint, and then Forms is something. But then they all have a very simple GUI layout that is similar to most text editors and spreadsheet editors. So most people that have done any work in a spreadsheet program would know the basic layout of using tabs and moving around with the arrows. So let's just, so say a patron wants to create a spreadsheet and they have some basic data that they want to visualize, but you're not sure how to help them find the way to insert the right graph or to how to select the data. So we can, while the docs docs or a sheet document is open, we can open up our new tab and we can say Google Sheets, how to create graph. So generally, at least my Google searching style is mostly complete sentences. Excuse me. I would just spell out what I want and know and not any excessive detail. Just Google Sheets, how to create. I don't need to how do I create a graph? Just how to create a graph. Okay, so thankfully Google with their auto answer algorithm has given us a top result. So it says right here, select cells, insert, select chart. So let's just do that right now. So we have one cell selected, select insert, and let us select chart. Now obviously there's no data in these cells right now, so we're not going to see any visualization, but the process for finding the instructions for doing any function is the same. Okay, so let's switch back to, so once, and if you get lost while you're in in a document or whatever, and you just want to get back, you can always just click on the Sheets icon right here. It says Sheets Home, and it takes you back where you can also switch between docs, sheets, and slides here, or you can always use your Google Apps kind of 9-dot button over here to access all your Google stuff. So say we're working on our spreadsheet and we want to collaborate with another person, or a patron is asking you to help them share a document so that you can help them with it, or they can collaborate with somebody else. So Google makes this very easy, the big share button right up top, but we just want to say this is training doc 1. Oh, spell training right. Go. So when you go to share a new document, there are a couple things that you want to check first. And you get there by this gear icon, which is share with people settings. Generally with Google and a lot of modern browsers, a gear icon is going to be some sort of settings menu. So when you click on the gear, I'll do it again. So we hit share and went to the gear. This is where it was, this checkbox, editors can change permissions and share. So if you have a document that you just want people to be able to, that you want them to be able to edit it, but you want them to be able to share it with other people, or like change like the whole, have complete rights to it, then you would uncheck that so that they can make maybe changes, but then you still have complete rights for like who can have access to it. And then finally, like if you have a document that you just want people to be able to see online, but they shouldn't be able to download it or print it or whatever, then you can uncheck this box as well. So this is how you make like a unobtainable file that is accessible to people online. And then we could say change to anyone with link. So basically anyone is a viewer only of the try that one more time. So go to share. So I'm going to just share it with one of my accounts. Okay, there's that. I don't need to notify training doc. I'm gonna allow myself to be able to download, copy, and print it, but not change the permissions. So I'm gonna make it so I am an editor, and then share. So one thing to note when you are sharing and working with people on documents, you can see where the other like in Google, you can see where the other person is in the document when they're editing it, so that you can collaborate easier with the person. Let me pull up my documents here. Okay. Share it with me. Well, I guess I'm not seeing the share immediately. So we'll move on to the next thing. I'll come back to that. So the last thing to do with kind of managing files in Google Docs. So anything that you create is automatically saved. So there's no file save button. It's just gonna ask you to name it, and you can rename it and then download it. So don't worry about, it's automatically saved, I think every 15 to 30 seconds. And then you can see up here version history of all the edits, and easily go back to an edit instead of like having to Control V or like go back, undo. You can more granularly go through and see all specific edits. It's just, this is a new file, and Google sometimes is a little bit slow with new files. Okay. Let's do that. So when you are like if you need to export the file to email to somebody or print it off and you want to put it on a different computer and you don't want it, like you just need to be able to open it on a computer and you don't want to have to sign in to Google Docs, then I would recommend you download it as like a PDF document or an Excel. That way you can just open it up and then print it off, usually offline if you're going to be moving it to a USB or sending it via email. So if you want to just check about all the files that have been created in your Google Docs and all of the things that might have been shared or shared with you, that information can be seen pretty easily on the Drive portion of the Google Workspace. That can be, you can reach that by doing drive.google.com in the URL bar, or when you are on any Google Workspace application, you can hit the Google Apps button and find it icon right there. Okay, and so now we can see our file that we've already created in Sheets is here. We can select it, we can right click it, we can get the link if we want to share it, we can move it, we can rename it, we can download it, and we can remove it. We can basically, just like in Windows, if we were opening up our File Explorer and accessing our documents, the same as like we're right clicking and having access to our menu to do rename and download and delete files. So it's a nice right click option in the Drive. So over here on the left hand side, you will see a shared with me. So if this is an important one, especially if a patron is like they've been shared a file and like they know like they got a notification and I should have access to it. I just don't know where to access it. Like if they've been shared a Google document or file or anything, it would be, they just need to go to drive.google.com, go to shared with me, and they will see all of the shares right here. Google did just, release a feature that allows you to prevent. So basically before you could just put any Gmail address in the share and you could share it to them, and then there's no way to like block that. And I think some developers were abusing it by sharing like their stuff with everybody. So they put away so that if you don't want somebody to share, they share with something with you once, but you don't want them to be able to do it again, then go in and block them. That is an option. Block and unblock people in Google Drive. Okay. Okay, let's see what's next. I think to finish, we got some comments that I didn't see. Okay. I think to finish it up for today, we're gonna do a little what's called Google Dorks. These are the internal commands that allow you to do a little more complex searching, to just filter your results. They get complex. They're called Dorks because they get to the point where they're for scripting languages, and there's programs that you set up a whole bunch of commands that you want it to execute every day, and then it runs these commands basically as complex Google searches, and then you get the results and store them in a database. So Google has lots of information that they've gathered, and a lot of it's publicly available, and so people, if you're knowledgeable enough and you want to spend the time, you can gather that information and get to know a lot about a lot of things by just using their engine. So the first dork and the function that we will talk about is just quotes. So let's put my name in. So if I do like Tom Lawrence, now it's searching both Tom and Lawrence. It doesn't care if it is completely the string is together. and it will just go by popularity. Google will know it's a name, so it'll do some filtering. But if we specifically want Tom Lawrence, we need to put quotes around it, and that will only return results that specifically match, that have this exact string in that page. So let's say I was trying to find myself. Well, I'm not the most famous person, so it might be hard for me to find myself. Or you say you're trying to locate a person to get their number or information. You can add in classifiers that will narrow down. I mean, people are basically doing this intuitively by typing in full sentences saying exactly what they need. But every time you add another word, you're basically saying plus this classifier to your search. So anything that specifically matches Tom Lawrence plus, let's say, Casanova, where I'm from, yields, oh, okay, looks like it actually, yeah. So this top result looks like is my LinkedIn, and not much else. Oh yeah, Casanova stuff. So you can really narrow down results with just using quotes around your search term and extra classifiers using the plus. Now, if you are getting too many results and you want to filter things out, so let's say we'll do Will Smith. So this is actor Will Smith, but like we don't want the actor. You can use the minus symbol, and then directly after that, the word that you want Google to ignore the search criteria for. So I want all the Will Smith information you have, but not of the actor. And these are, you can just tack these on. So I can add on, minus baseball, because it looks like that one was. So now our top result is some Will Smith YouTube person. And this, I mean, you can pretty quickly, you can narrow down and find more specific results, because nowadays there's a lot of things that people pay marketing, and they're trying to get their website or their application or their YouTube page channel out there, and so they fill up all the search results with their stuff, but it's hard to find the average person's page or something like that, especially if you have a very common name. Okay, so that's those two Google Dork commands. And then let's see, what else is a good one? So I'm just gonna show you an example of a long Google Dorks command that allows you to find files on the internet. Just an example of what's possible, and then we can expand upon this in the next lesson, or I will give links to do some searching on your own. So let's go here. Big one thing. So let's break this down. So this is basically searching for Michael Jackson. And this part right in title is searching for this page. So let's see, I will explain for it. So when we go to like our public statements page, you see public statements up on this tab, because like that's the header of the page. So or like the title of the page. So when you can say you want to search something, you can say in title : and then anything after that is like the title of the page. So people have figured out, I mean, Google's indexed everything, and there's music everywhere on the internet, but you don't have access to your streaming site. You use a command like this, which searches for pages that have indexed music and then have files, and then we start searching for a description like Thriller, and then we hit enter, and we get websites like this that have like all of the music files that you would want, and you could just click on, and it's perfectly organized. So Google can really classify and even sort data that you search for the results for, and give it to you in a very nice, clean way that most people do not know is possible. So one last quick one. So Insight. So this command, so it's at stls.org, Tom Lawrence. Whoops, I meant in URL. Okay, so one last quick Google, this is another quick and powerful one. Say you wanted to just search something on another website, but their website's slow, that has a bad search, and you just want to have Google quickly search their website for you. So in the URL bar or in search bar, interchangeable, we can just type in URL, full colon, and then, so let's just say our site, stls.org, and then I want to find me on our site. So boom, staff, Southern Tier Library System, and I'm on the page right there. Okay, let's just say, I can't actually think of another example, but you get the idea. With any website, after the in URL colon and then the website URL, you don't need the www, and then your search criteria. In this case, I was using so website.com, and then this search criteria with the colons just for my full name. So indeed.com, Tom Lawrence. And so there are certain websites that do not index or allow Google to index their information, so you would get results like this, whereas no results found for in the in URL. I think that's it for right now. If anybody has any quick questions, we can answer some questions, or we will wrap it up for
Tom, there's
right now.
one question in the chat from Lynn. What if you use Insight search for Insight? What if you use Insight for search? ... example.
Yeah. So you would only use Insight if you're using Google to search another website. So let's say Dorman Library. That just came to mind. Pretty sure that's the URL. Yeah. Okay. So let's say they didn't have a good search and you didn't know. If you did in URL dormanlibrary.org, this is going to use Google to search the Dorman Library, and then after the space, you do your search criteria. So books. Oh, and then Google sometimes might check that you're not a robot, because these commands are often used by robots. Tractors, I'm seeing tractors. Okay, and there we go. So, and we will quickly get only Google results that are for the dormanlibrary.org website, and then have at least one search criteria with books on that page. So that, hopefully that explains a little better. Right. Well, I hope it wasn't too awful, everyone. And I think we have another one scheduled here in October. So.
Yeah, thanks, Tom. And we'll send out an email with the upcoming information for the next workshops in the series. Thanks all for coming.
Thanks, everyone.